Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Clean Energy Edge. My name is Russ Bates, along with my Canadian co host, Brian Scott. Brian, how are you doing?
Doing very well today, Russ. How you doing?
Yeah. You know, but that's I'm not even going to get into it because it's just more and more craziness here. So let's let's dive into this. You and I haven't talked since that bill was passed,
Right.
and there's a lot of things in the bill, right? There's SNAP benefits, there's Medicaid, there's all these different things in there. But let's talk about the clean energy. And I'm going to say, just being blunt, right? My view is the US has really just sabotaged its own energy future. I
Yeah.
mean, the cheapest, most deployable electricity generation technology out there, they've gone to war with. There's a lot of reasons I think clean energy is still going to make it. This bill, in my mind, just means it's going to cost ratepayers more and more money than what it should. And the problem is demand is exploding, right?
Yeah.
It's not going down. We need more electrons on the grid right now than when we started this podcast a few minutes ago. And fossil fuels can't keep up. Um, Nuclear, well, we can talk about that too. It's just not going to make it in the short term. And short term, I'm saying is, let's say up to 2030. So let's really break this down and talk about it and kind of talk about why this is a very self-inflicted wound that makes absolutely zero sense,
Yeah.
no matter how you look at it. I don't see how it could really benefit anyone except fossil fuel companies, I guess. But the big ugly bill, it gutted the ITC. The investment tax credit, it froze some investments into renewables. It's really doubled down on fossil fuels. They're saying clean coal. I just threw up in my mouth a little bit because that's obviously not viable at all. This is a failure not of technology, but I'm going to say it's a very big failure of political courage. So, Brian, big picture here, how are you seeing this policy shift from, on the other side of the border? And are you experiencing any type of effects of that?
I don't think we're seeing it up here, to be honest. I think we may have seen it if the last election a few months back went a little differently. I think that there is, much like your side of the border, there's a lot of desire to cut back on government expenses. That's a big thing. There's a big review being done right now to do big cuts. But the tax credits that we have existing and most of the incentive programs still exist to this point. I do think you will see in certain provinces like Alberta probably more pushback against clean energy incentives. It just kind of seems to be the appetite right now. But it's all in all, I think it's kind of like for people looking for low priced energy for the future and stable grids, it should be kind of all of the above. People shouldn't care where that's coming from, right? Especially we're talking about massive implementation of data centers. The demand is going to be so high, and I just think we're headed towards an era where people feel less and less confident in the stability of the grid, which ends up meaning they start to try and become more independent if they can afford to. And that sort of thing, I think, actually does favor clean energy more than the alternative. There's definitely going to be people that incorporate, both sides of that equation, especially up here in Canada, where it's just winters are a little different for stuff like solar and wind. But if you can stay on the grid and supplement it with solar, it still makes more sense. And as you see, batteries seem to continuously be getting cheaper. And as long as that keeps happening, it'll become more and more part of that equation.
Yeah, and we're really seeing, I mean, an explosion of demand, right? This isn't the traditional little incremental increases in consumption that we've had in years and decades past. there's a lot more need for electricity, right? AI,
Yeah.
regular data centers, EVs are still growing no matter what they're trying to do here in the States as far as tamper that growth. Heat pumps, manufacturing, all I always put this up. Everybody's got two or three of these, it seems, right? So these things all run on electricity. And to me, it's very simple. It's supply and demand. The demand continues to go up, and the supply, they just cut the knees, get us out at the knees on clean energy. But for a moment, I want to talk more about that because I still see a lot of great things happening in clean energy. But with the grid and the trends with grid operators, with utilities, are these utilities, and I'll say the grid operators too, do you think they're preparing in any way for the demand surge, or are they still stuck in the slow lane? I know permitting and interconnection and all that's always been a problem, but that's going to, I think, be really amplified whenever clean energy starts kind of going away from these utility scale projects down the road.
100%. 100%. It's just, it's you can't go all in one way, and they would really like to, and it just doesn't feel practical to me. Like, do you see it being sustainable the way um either side of the aisle, but maybe more so the Republicans see this going right now?
No, I don't. I don't see it making sense at all. To me, if I'm a utility, right? Let's just say that the clean energy stuff, there's no more utility scale projects for wind, solar, whatever. And I'm a utility, and I'm relying on the power generation that's still there. And I want to talk about that in a second. But what happens when more and more data centers come online? And as a utility grid operator, I've only got so many electrons that I can put out. And I know the data center, let's say the Metas, the Facebooks, the Googles, whoever, they need that power, and they're a bigger name. Who am I going to send it to? To the small mom and pop shops, to a small manufacturer, to residential customers? Or if I'm running out of electricity, am I just going to have a brownout or a blackout with some folks and make sure that the Amazons of the world still get their power? I think I know what they're going to do. So who's that hurt? That hurts residents, homeowners. It's going to hurt all these small businesses. And people think, well, is that really going to happen? I can't see that happening. You're damn right it's going to happen. It's again simple supply and demand in my view.
Yeah, and I mean, with everything else going on with tariffs and everything else, it just feels like everything's just going to keep costing more money. It doesn't feel like there's been an inherent plan to deal with cost of living, and then you create a scenario that is only going to push up cost of energy. It I don't know what they're hoping people will do to deal with that. I did hear that a lot of parts of this bill are, the negatives are set to be impacted or felt after the midterms,
Yeah.
and the positives before the midterms, which is very clever. I have heard, I mean, not to get off topic, that some of these hospitals are already planning on closing because they're just like, we can't survive.
Some of them already have. I've already heard of at least one that as soon as the bill was signed in, they're like, hey, we're hurting already. We got to shut it down. And it's rural, these rural communities. That's who's going to be hurt.
And their energy is going to cost more too. Like, it's this big thing where I think you could very much blame or disagree with the Democrats' approach to the IRA and how they wanted to implement it. There's a lot of opinions on that, right? So there's always going to be disagreements, but at least they were trying to get things happening, trying to get a lot of energy out there, energy generation, transmission, distribution, like trying to tie the whole thing together. And that's just not what this plan is. This plan feels a little bit like, let's hurt renewables, let's help fossil fuels, and everything in the middle will get figured out. And I think we both know that it just doesn't work that way with utilities. Like, it's just far too complicated.
Yeah, they move very slow unless they're laundering some money to a politician. Then they're pretty efficient with that.
Very true.
At least one definitely is here in Ohio. Another podcast. But yeah, whenever you think about it, I've always said this is a transition to clean energy. And you still need these coal-fired plants running. You still need natural gas. You still need nuclear, and that's something we want to talk about. But it should be moving in the direction of clean energy because it costs less, it's more efficient, all those kind of things that we discuss all the time. And you've got folks that were on the left, still on the left, that they want to shut down every fossil fuel power gen, polluter, just like that.
Yeah.
And
Like in a switch.
yeah, just shut them off, shut them off. And I'm like, well, you can't, that does not make sense to do. You can't do that. It's not going to be good for anybody. And now you've got the exact opposite over here on the right with this bill. All right, we're shutting down clean energy. Now, batteries, they're still part of the plan. They didn't throw that in on the bill. So that's a good thing. All right, well, great. But let's again say clean energy shut down. Let's be real about it. They're not going to build new coal, right? Who is going to go in and build a new coal plant or spend any kind of money retrofitting an existing coal plant to do that? And no, I mean, in 3 years, this could all be over for them, right? It could be in 18 months. Those things take time. Natural gas, that build out takes time. The steam generators, those are 5+ years out. You order one today, you'll get it middle of the year 2030. And just check, and people can go and look at that. I encourage them to do that. But there's no new real projects coming up. We've got some natural gas plants that have been in the pipeline, and I think there's going to be more to come up. But those projects are not going to produce electricity till 2030 and beyond. Nuclear, forget about it. That's a decade plus and billions of dollars. Small modular reactors, where are those at? Show me one. I hear those all the time. Oh, SMRs, that's the future. Well, it's way in the future because I haven't seen one, or I know there's not one in the US. There may be one in China, somebody told me. I don't know.
I know they're working on it in Ontario. Like there's one that's under development. And people are starting to talk about it out here. I don't know that it makes sense. I don't know that we have the population density for it to work out here. But maybe it works. But it's 10 years out, best case.
Yeah, and if it does work, okay, great. We know nuclear will work, but it costs so damn much, right? The timeline is a long time. It is. You got the waste that's associated with it. And okay, you could say that's the smallest problem out of all of those, if you want to call that a small problem, but you do have that to deal with. And the other thing I always talk about with nuclear that's in my mind is I said this on a podcast last week. To me, it's a big target, right? I mean, here in the U.S., we're pissing everybody off. We're not making friends. We're making, I'd say, enemies. And we're going to put more nuclear in so people it doesn't have to be a nuclear explosion. It could be more of a Chernobyl type of event.
Sure.
So there's a lot of cons whenever you're talking about nuclear. But I don't know. I mean, again, if we're not using clean energy, what else are we going to use to produce these electrons?
It's really hard to say how that would work out. It really is. Like it feels just inevitable, right? Like the IRA took forever to implement. It wasn't efficient, but it moved a lot of things forward. There's ITC, there's all these sorts of like positive things. I think anytime you roll back policy, it just takes that much longer to get it back in place, especially because people know that there was people against it. So they're going to put something in place that's more passive. So it's one of those things that the midterms are going to tell a big story for the US, I think. I can't imagine with the things happening that That's going to go well for the Republicans, especially because there is just so much political drama going on right now in the U.S. I mean, we talked about it. Even Epstein seems to be the one thing that'll stick to Trump these days, on with his base. But if they do well in the midterms, and you just never know, right? If they do well in the midterms, it's going to be hard to come back from. I don't know where.
You're saying they, as far as like the Republicans,
The Republicans,
well.
yeah, the Republicans, and I hate to say they, but they are the ones responsible for this policy. And you kind of set things back a decade because you start moving so far in one way. It's really difficult to course correct, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to imagine where we are in 5 years if the Republicans hold power all the way till the next federal election.
Yeah, if they have it till 28, that's going to be something. And with regards to this policy and this bill and just the overall thought process, I don't know. Have they thought this out? Is it just been, all right, fossil fuels? We're getting a lot of campaign donations from fossil fuel companies. Let's do this, and haven't thought through of, all right, what are going to be the impacts of that? Or have they thought it through? And that gets to my next point. We're going to see brownouts and blackouts. I mentioned it earlier. I mean, we're already seeing it, right?
Yeah.
Grid operator PJM, they've already got reliability alerts. ERCOT's in trouble down in Texas. Summer peak pricing, that's up 20%, and more in some places, maybe a little less in others. But I mean, on average, it's up 20-something percent. That's what you get when you don't have enough generation. We're not getting more kilowatt hours out of this. We're going to get rolling brownouts and blackouts. So if they have thought about this, wow, that's a real devious plan. I want to think they're just more incompetent. But I mean, in your opinion, I'm going to throw it back on the grid operators and the utilities because they should have a pretty strong voice in this. Do you think they're being honest about what's coming? I mean, it's simple math, right? We have X number of kilowatt hours being produced, and here's the projection of what we're going to need. I'm not hearing a ton from these folks, but what's your take?
It's hard to say. Like, I feel like in the last 5 years, we've heard a lot from them with kind of regards to the challenges of implementing intermittent sources, right? There's obviously challenges there. All the studies that have to be done, all the interconnections, all of these sorts of things that I feel like they've been very vocal about that. I'm not saying that it can't be done, but the challenges and the timelines and all that sort of thing. I think they need to be vocal about the challenges of just not getting enough energy on the grid as well. Right. Like if you're a grid operator, you can just say we don't have enough energy. It's kind of a simple problem to have that they can't really solve. Where the problem is implementation of various generational sources. They feel like they're holding the bag. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you have to have enough energy.
So do you think this is kind of made their answer and response easier? Because I hadn't really thought about that. That's a good point, Brian. That they're like, well, it's not that they have to manage how they're getting these folks on and the the clean energy piece of it, the wind, the solar, and balancing out with storage. You're saying now that took the pressure off of them because they can say, we've only got so much generation. What are we going to do? And that's the truth, I guess.
Yeah, that's very much. I think it's an easier answer for them. I'm not saying that they're being devious or anything else like that. I think it is challenging. Like I think sometimes we think it's easy to just throw loads of intermittent sources on the grid, and it just isn't. It's vastly complicated, and it needs a lot of support and batteries and large transmission and stuff like super grids that I don't think have really gone far enough in implementation. More high voltage DC kind of coast to coast that can balance loads a lot better or balance production. But it's one of those things that the solution to the problem is investing heavily in a grid. And this is not that, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. The investment in the grid has not been there. Even if they had unlimited coal, natural gas, and nuclear generation, let's say we could snap our fingers like that and get this stuff, the grid still can't handle it, right? And they've not updated the grid. So that's a problem. And the other thing, just we'll throw this in the conversation as well. We do get a little bit of electricity here in the U.S. from our friends up north in Canada. It's not very much. It's less than a percent, but I mean that percent matters to the residents and businesses it's serving. And now we've got this tariff that the administration has thrown out, 35% on Canada. And does it affect the electricity? I don't know. I mean, that's an import, right? So
Sure.
By conventional wisdom, that's what's going to happen is electricity coming from Canada is all of a sudden going to go up 35%. So in those markets, the ITC, that 30% base investment tax credit going away, hell, you're even better to pencil this thing out, but it's still going to cost you more money, right? Is someone putting these in? So I mean,
100%.
this letter just came out the other day, right? But I mean, is there any talk in Canada about what that's going to look like, or anything else? There was talk of just shutting, opening that switch and shutting off power to the U.S. at one point. But anything you can tell us about the pulse of Canada right now?
I think there's a lot of people on edge. There's no doubt about that as to what's coming, right? I feel like people very much believe, how would I say this? People very much believe that these tariffs are likely something, right? We don't know what, but it's likely something at this point, right? So what it is, it's really hard to say. I don't know that anybody knows, but people feel uneasy as to what's happening. I think people also feel like Trump just keeps saying tariff, and after a while, it's like, okay, yeah, we get it, we get it. People, slowly become less interested, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but
it's like a rerun of kind of a bad TV movie, where, oh, we're going to do this, and then we're going to pause it. So nobody really knows. That's the talk, here with the U.S. markets, that no matter what he says, it may kind of drop a little bit here or there, but the market's still going, which makes no sense whenever you're talking about what's being said is going to happen, right?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what people believe. I feel like people care a little less than they did 6 months ago. He definitely helped the prime minister win the election, and his numbers are so much higher than anybody's had in Canadian politics in years. People seem to be buying into the fact that he's going to push back. This might be what unwinds that too, because if we get a really bad deal or we get a trade war going that Trump just says, well, we're going to outlast you, that might be his undoing, right? Him saying, I can stand up to these people might not ring so true for a lot of folks, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people do not want Canada to back down. They don't want any of these countries to back down, especially Canada. I mean, that's just fentanyl. What a ridiculous thing for him to say. But with that, I guess kind of circling back, and I've said this a couple times, clean energy is still the present and future is how I see it.
Sure.
Even with the ITC being wound down. So like residential's hurt. I mean, at the end of this year, the residential market loses that tax incentive. Okay. That's going to hurt a lot of folks. That's roughly, I think, 35 residential is 35% of overall energy consumption in the U.S. Whenever you're looking at that big pie. But the tax incentives are still in place for projects as long as they're up and operational by the end of 2027. So to me, that's a great opportunity for any commercial, industrial. There's still utility scale projects that can come online and take advantage of those benefits of the investment tax credit. And it depends on what executive order he throws out. They're still going to try to get every single project, I think, the way they're pursuing it, to not be able to pencil out. But with the supply demand problem, the prices are going to go up, right? So to me, the price increase is going to cancel out the ITC going away, where folks are still going to be better off. They're going to save money because I see the cost still going down for clean energy. Plus you had the cost continuing to go up just with the grid and the supply demand problem I mentioned. Factor in the brownouts and blackouts that are coming. I mean, it's just math.
Yeah.
Clean energy is still going to be the way a lot of folks end up going. Yeah. It's going to still be cheaper. It's going to be more dependent and less reliance on the grid. We just got to see what happens. It's going to cost more money though, right? But it's still going to be cheaper. So at the end of the day, this still ends up hitting the off-taker, the consumers.
Yep. It's one of these things where at times I just don't know what Trump's real intention is. What's his end game? I can't quite figure that out, to be honest with you. It just doesn't ever really seem to make sense to me. And maybe it's just, a lot of special interests that are kind of controlling the narrative. I don't know. Like, oil and gas put a lot of money behind his campaign. And he doesn't have to worry about getting reelected, in theory, unless he's going to try and, take over the world. So he doesn't have a lot to lose that way. And it feels like less and less of these Congress people really want to keep running over and over again because it's just not worth it. I don't know. It just, there's no logical path in my mind to this is going to make things better, even from a perspective if you don't like renewables. Right?
Yeah.
I don't see it. I don't see it.
I don't see it. What I see is, I'll just say, here come the blackouts. Not because the tech failed, not because we didn't see it coming. It's really because here in the U.S., politics and ideology was factored in. And the grid, it doesn't care about ideology. It just needs the power. That's what we have to have. And we just made sure we're not going to have enough unless we really go in with clean energy. So obviously clean energy still works. It's still faster, cheaper, smarter than anything else on the table. But unless that we reverse that course and fast, and I don't know if they're going to, then everybody's going to fill in their wallets in their communities they live in. And I mean, they're going to be in the dark. We're going to have to, that'll be a kind of a consistent thing that we have to do with. And it's weird that we'd be dealing with this in 2025. All right. So final thoughts, Brian?
We're gonna have to let this play out like a lot of other things. I think it feels like historically in the last 5 to 10 years in the U.S., nothing is what it seems it is. There's a lot of bluster. There's a lot of course correction. But it's just not a positive step is what it comes down to, I think.
I would second that. Time will tell, but I don't think we really have to have a magic 8 ball to figure this one out. Oh well, guys, we appreciate it. If this episode made you think, do us a favor, like, subscribe, click that alert bell so you don't miss the next one. Brian and I, we're going to keep telling the truth about energy, about policy in the future, whether folks like it or not. So we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.